Welcome back to Movies TV Mad and Sunday's edition of the DCU Daily. Why don't you, man, have the same energy for Man of Steel as you have for Superman? Let's discuss that. Why is Superman being celebrated domestically? Because, like it or not, Superman has done good, solid box office domestically, but has crashed and burned internationally. It's about to cross $500 million today. Now, let me be absolutely clear about this. You know how I feel about this movie. You know my love for Superman. But let's be absolutely clear. Phase 4 and Phase 5 of the MCU have been a financial disaster. Some films making around 300, 330, 400 million. Disastrous. Superman reaching over 500 million today. With how much comic book movies are struggling, of course, is being seen as a win. From James Gunn, Peter Safran, and especially David Zaslav. They're not comparing the box office to Man of Steel. They're not comparing the box office to Joker, The Dark Knight, The Batman. They're not doing that. They're saying, look how shit it's been. Look how shit the final DCEU movies did. But look here. So they're comparing their movie to kind of the low box offices for comic book movies of the last few years. But why don't they have the same energy for Man of Steel as they've had for Superman? Why are we seeing celebrities? Kevin Smith, Helen Slater, who was the first actress to play Supergirl, my favourite version of Supergirl, by the way. All these great people have been saying that they loved Superman. Now, have they been bribed? Most probably. Have they been told to say this? Most probably. But it still kind of works for the property, for the film. It's a good thing to see celebrities saying they're loving this film. Now, ultimately, as I say, they're comparing this box office to the underwhelming box offices of comic book movies, right? And they're calling it a success. So, why didn't people have the same positive energy for Man of Steel? I'll explain. Number one, I love Man of Steel. I love Zack Snyder. I love all his movies, especially his 3 DC movies. No, 4, strike that, 4 DC movies, because he did Watchmen, which is a DC property as well. I mean, anyone who thinks they're bad movies, you've got to at least celebrate them and compliment the man for his visual achievements, even if those films are not your films, type of films, right? Anyway, I love them. But the reason that there was so much negativity from hardcore Superman fans and general audiences is because Man of Steel is very contemporary and it makes very interesting statements, post 9/11 statements about Superman. Number one, they took the trunks away. Now, to hardcore fans, this was really offensive because you're adapting a pre-existing iconic character and taking something away from him. And that's offensive to hardcore fans. It always is. Imagine taking the TARDIS away in 2005 when the Doctor Who was revived, right? Imagine making it a flashy silver kind of cruise liner spaceship and time machine. People would have got pissed off. So people were understandably pissed off because the red trunks were taken away. Now, it doesn't, as a huge Superman fan, it didn't bother me. Cavill's costume is immense. Michael Wilkinson is a great designer of costumes. He's amazing, right? It's an amazing costume. But people were upset when you got Superman or Clark standing there while his father tells him not to save him and doesn't attempt to save him. That pissed off a lot of people. Again, I think the tornado flashback sequence is outstanding. And I got where Goya was going here, but I do feel he should have executed what he was trying to do there a little bit differently, because you just kind of bring in plot holes and you give people a reason to shit on a movie. Then, of course, we've got Superman breaking Zod's neck. Utterly controversial. Again, for me, it was a compelling moment that sucked the air out of the cinema audience I was in. but everyone had an opinion, and it hurt this film's ability to make more money, and it kept the conversations going and going. Same with BVS. BVS is a post 9/11 movie about Batman and Superman again, and Superman barely smiles in that movie. He's very depressed, he's very upset, and Batman wants to murder Superman because he's been manipulated by Lex Luthor. I love the film, and I love Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, right? I love what Snyder did, but it wasn't for everyone. And the reason that Gunn's movie is doing so well in America, because it's generic, and it's just saying, this is Superman. This is who he's always been. Now, in terms of the shit, I can hear you shouting, saying, what about Jor-El and Lara? Well, we're going to have to wait a few movies down the line to see if that's really Jor-El and Lara. I don't know. Look, I don't know. But I don't like that either. But ultimately, it's a movie with a brighter story tone, with a brighter colour palette, and it's generic. This is everything that people clamoured for and demanded when they saw the Snyderverse. For the people who didn't like the Snyderverse, this is a fucking beautiful honeymoon. I don't care about colour palettes, not really, but a lot of people do. I mean, I went to film school. I understand colour palettes, and but there was also a tonal narrative discourse about the Snyderverse. They just didn't like the tone of Snyder's stories and where they were taking Superman and Batman. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because I do think we are in an era of a generic audience, a generic pie-eating audience that don't really seem to want to be compelled or fancy any depth. Listen, it's interesting because people will say, well, what about the Dark Knight, Mick? What about the Batman? What about Joker? Why did people clamour to see those movies? Those movies weren't bright. Those movies were very, very dark movies. So why did those movies make money? Because they're not Superman. Batman isn't Superman. The Joker is certainly not Superman. I think it's a major achievement that Man of Steel made $670 million at the global box office. But one similarity between Superman and Man of Steel is they suffered in one part of the world. So Superman has suffered internationally, and Man of Steel suffered domestically. But here's the thing. Studios don't take kindly to suffering and failing at home. That's when the noise is really loud, and that's when the noise was really loud for Man of Steel. Because a lot of people in America, Texas and like the more conservative areas of America rejected Man of Steel because it wasn't a traditional take at the character. And this is why Superman is doing so well in America, because the more conservative areas of America and Americans in general are saying, yeah, how do you do? Yeehaw! This is my apple pie, Yankee doo-doo-doo, Superman movie. This is what Superman is. This is what we want. This is why it's doing better in America. Why isn't it doing as well internationally? Why isn't it as strong as Man of Steel was internationally? Because they brought Cavill back, then they took him away again. And international audiences clearly really loved Henry Cavill more than Americans did. Now, don't shout at me. I know there's a lot of American fans that love Henry Cavill's Superman, as I do. But clearly, people actually put their money where their mouth was. And this whole, it's a closed thing, right? It's stay in our pockets, or whatever they were saying, rang true internationally. But America is a huge country. And ultimately, studios want to do better at home than abroad. If they're gonna take a hit, they'd rather take a hit internationally. Now, Gunn's bullshit about international audiences not knowing Superman so well is bullshit. We know it's bullshit. But ultimately that's not the discussion. So that's why these men don't have the same energy, because Man of Steel took the knife and twisted it in the wound and said, this is Superman in the real world. This is a post 9/11 Superman. And Americans said, oh no you don't, this is not what we want. You see, Superman Returns was a flop. A lot of people didn't like Superman Returns, but it was still a very traditional Superman. And Superman Returns had its own problems. I've always said Superman Returns is a movie of great moments rather than a great movie. But I think if you can recollect great moments from a movie that stay with you, then it probably is a great movie. And Superman Returns certainly has that for me. I mean, the deleted scene, the Return to Krypton sequence, is probably better than anything in James Gunn's Superman movie. But it's not about James Gunn's Superman movie's quality. It's not about saying that Superman is better than Man of Steel. No. The reason that Americans enjoyed it is because it's generic and traditional. And Man of Steel wasn't. That's the issue. This is why people turned against the Snyderverse. That is the simple issue. And Snyder fans have been arguing with the traditionalists for the past 10 plus years. And there's no point. Love what you love and let people hate what they hate and love what they love, right? If you love Man of Steel, if you love James Gunn's Superman, that's okay. And by the way, you don't need my fucking permission. Who the fuck am I to give you permission? But that's the point. That's why they don't have the same energy for Man of Steel as they do Superman. As I've always said, the Snyderverse is Richard Nixon, and like the MCU was John F. Kennedy. I remember watching the Nixon biopic starring Sir Anthony Hopkins as Nixon. He looks at Kennedy's picture, he goes, why do they hate me so much? And why do they love you so much? And President Kennedy was a good-looking Democrat who put this kind, diverse view across the world. And he said, let's fly, I want to go to the moon. In reality, President Kennedy was a nasty little shit. He was a womanizer. We saw in the movie Blonde, the Marilyn Monroe biopic, what a little bastard he actually was and what a low opinion he had of women, right? But the side he showed to the world was clean cut and pretty and ambitious. And the masses, the sheep, flocked to that. And it's the same with Man of Steel. Man of Steel says, fuck you. This is the real world. People get hurt in the real world. If Superman sees his mum getting bullied by aliens, he's going to smack the living shit out of that alien. And if he crashes into a petrol station, he isn't going to think about the collateral damage because he's so angry, right? It's Superman in the real world. But the hardcore fans are saying, hang on a minute, this is Superman. Superman would care. Our Clark wouldn't allow his father to make him not save his life, right? The Park Kent I know, when Clark says, what do you expect me to do, let them die? And him saying, maybe, our Park Kent wouldn't say that to John Schneider Park Kent. The Superman 78 Park Kent wouldn't fucking do that. But I understand what Goya's trying to do in Man of Steel. He's trying to be contemporary. He's trying to be grounded. I think you can be grounded with every single existing character but Superman. They want traditionalism. Hardcore Superman fans and general American audiences want traditionalism. And once you go against that, once you start twisting the knife, you have real problems. So Man of Steel making 670 million globally by the end of its run is a huge achievement, considering it's a post 9/11 movie, it's a contemporary movie that fucks off so many Americans and so many traditionalists. It shows you how strong it was internationally rather than in America. It really struggled in America, and Superman has struggled internationally. So there's something they've got in common. But as I say, it's a better sell to say we were successful in America, because Americans don't give a shit how a movie does internationally. The American access media press don't care if a movie doesn't do so well internationally. But let's be clear here. If James Gunn's Superman had made as much money internationally as it did domestically, we're looking at an $800 to $1 billion movie. And oh boy, would there be some tears and there'd be lots of arguments. Now, this film is on 500 million. It's interesting, as the experiment keeps on going, to see how far this movie can go. Because obviously, as what happens in its third week, we're approaching its fourth week now, right? Where they lose screens, they lose IMAX screens, right? One of the key decisions they made was to cut half an hour of this movie. It meant they could have more screenings. That's really helped its box office. But let's not get it twisted, because we have to be straight no matter how we feel about Gunn in this movie. That this movie has performed better than recent comic book movies.